We are live. Okay, welcome to the next webinar. If you joined me last week or saw the one last week, we went over the 4 cardio quadrants. And so this week I wanted to share some tips and training strategies for breathing. And so breathing is one of these things that a lot of us take for granted. A lot of times it's just, you do it without thinking about it. And so we don't necessarily think about training it like we do the other aspects of our performance. So things like mobility and strength and cardio, we have specific strategies and things that we're shooting for. We know what we want to achieve with those things. But when it comes to breathing, it's kind of like, well, whatever. We'll just kind of, whatever happens, happens. And so, unfortunately, I fell into this category early on. I definitely robbed myself of some performance and, definitely created problems for myself through not having good breathing habits. And so I wanted to share some of those things with you. And so I'm going to go through some notes, just basically, what am I talking about? Why is breathing important? What are some of the basic things we're looking for? And then I'm going to dive into some specific things that you can do to help improve your breathing. And so if you're joining me for the live webcast here or stream, if you want to have any questions or whatever, feel free to post them and I'll answer them as we go, or when we get to the end, have a Q&A. But otherwise, we will get going here. So I've got just a couple notes here. Again, I don't really have a whole lot to go over as far as the why and stuff. And of course, the industrial area that I live in is prone to loud noises the facility here is prone to making some noises from time to time, so you'll have to forgive that noise if you can hear it. They've been waiting this whole time for right now when I started to start doing that again. So anyways, we'll work through it. But breathing, why is breathing important? Well, breathing is what drives your cardio and endurance. And cardio is one of the main things that riders are looking to improve. How do I improve my cardio? How do I improve my endurance on the trail? How do I ride, with more power and strength and be able to do it for longer? And breathing is what drives all of that. And so it's always been kind of one of these things, like once I realized it, you start thinking like, well, wait a minute, what am I doing if I don't have good breathing habits and I'm doing my workouts? What am I really training? Right? Like I'm training my crappy breathing habits. That's what I'm teaching my body. I keep reinforcing this crappy breathing. And so if you're wanting to improve your cardio and you don't have good breathing habits, then anytime you're doing any sort of like cardio workout or riding your bike or whatever, you're just reinforcing these bad breathing habits. And so if breathing is at the heart of your cardiovascular, endurance, and cardio is what you want to be training, then you need to be focusing on it and understanding what it is and how you can help improve it. So what it boils down to is that breathing is part of the process of good performance. The output of a good performance is, a good Strava time, a good race time, good power meter, heart rate, however you're measuring your workouts. And so riders are worried about the output side of things without necessarily worrying about the process for how you're achieving that. And breathing is at the heart of that. And so again, if you're not thinking about this and focusing on it, make sure you got good breathing habits and just focusing on riding hard and trying to ride faster, then again, you're missing a big part of the process. And so you want to be a process-focused rider and not necessarily an outcomes-focused rider. And this has to do with setting goals and all sorts of things as well. But once you understand the process that it takes to achieve good results, then that's what you want to be focused on, is that process, because you can control that process. You can't always control the outcome, right? You can't always control what the outcome of that performance is going to be, but you can control the process. And if you do the process correctly, more often than not, you're going to have a good performance. But if you're just focused on that outcome, then you can be missing a big thing that's going to help you later on. So especially, when you first start riding, this is one of those things that, you can just throwing your leg over a bike for the first year or two of riding is going to make you a better rider. Okay, you don't really need to do much of anything. Just the experience of riding is going to make you a better rider. But after about a year or two, your progress starts to peter out and plateau, and maybe even start to see some decline if you've been relying on some bad habits that are starting to catch up with you. And so, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to convince, especially new riders, that they need to be worried about, because every time they go out, they feel like they're getting better. And you can progress for quite a few years without necessarily focusing on this and having good breathing habits. But the thing is eventually, especially if you're looking to do this for a lifetime, right? Like the main theme of what I'm trying to help riders understand now is, how do I do this for a lifetime and continue to be able to progress, continue to be able to perform at a high level? And eventually bad breathing habits will catch up with you, right? On a long enough timeline, everything's going to catch up with you. And so you will reach a point, some riders sooner than later, where your progress is going to stall out. And one of the things that's going to be holding you back is your breathing, and it affects a lot of things on the trail, which, like I said, I'll cover here in just a second. So we'll the inefficient breathing, I got my little notes here. I'll be publishing these so you guys can check it out as well. But like I said, like the inefficient breathing, it's bad for your cardio and it robs you of performance on the trail. And there's a couple things that happen, right? So the most obvious thing is that when you have bad inefficient breathing, you're just going to have bad oxygen and CO2 exchange. Like when you're breathing in, you're taking in oxygen, and when you're breathing out carbon dioxide. And you're trying to make that exchange. When you're breathing in, the body is trying to take in the oxygen and deliver the CO2 to the lungs, and then when you breathe out, that CO2 is coming out, and then you breathe in more oxygen, and that exchange takes place again. And so your ability, that oxygen exchange, your ability to take in as much oxygen as you can, and then your body's ability to maximize that exchange between the oxygen and the CO2 is, again, like that's at the heart of your cardio. Like that is the most fundamental building block of your cardiovascular endurance, is this ability to take in oxygen and both through breathing in, taking in good deep breaths, and then also for your body to absorb the oxygen and then get out the CO2, the waste products and stuff. And so the more efficient that you are with this, like that is the basic building block of your cardio, like the better peak you're going to be able to have for your cardio. And if you're trying to build cardio without that basic building block, like I said, you're only going to be able to build it so high before it's not going to be able to be built much higher. You're going to have to fix this eventually anyways. And so at the heart of your cardio, you've got that. You've also got your breathing helps control your heart rate. And so your heart rate is directly connected to your fine motor skills. And so once your heart rate starts getting much over 150 beats per minute, your fine motor skills start degrading. Once you get up to about 170, 180, like your fine motor skills are it's very tough to do them, okay? And so the point is, if we're riding bikes and we're in technical situations where we need fine motor skills, and again, this is one of the things that separates mountain biking from road riding, is the importance of our technical skills. It's super important for both efficiency and also safety. But at the heart of technical skills are fine motor skills. Okay, even like pedaling on some, is definitely has that fine motor skill aspect to it. But the big part that you're going to notice is your skills. Okay, and so if you don't have good breathing habits, and you do a lot of chest breathing and panic breathing, and you're not able to use your breathing to control your heart rate and get it back down and keep it from maxing out in the first place, it will affect your performance on the trail through your technical skills. And again, this is research that's been done. These fine motor patterns and the heart rates that they start to get degraded at, this is stuff that's been researched by the military and the police, FBI. Like, this is very important for them in the field to know, how am I going to be able to operate? How do I operate at different arousal levels? And so again, the science behind this is pretty solid as far as your heart rate being directly connected to your fine motor skills. And so if you're relying on your fine motor skills, aka your technical skills, to help you on the trail, then you need good breathing habits so that you can keep your heart rate under control. And so those two things right there are at the heart of your performance on the trail: your cardiovascular endurance, and then your efficiency with your movement, your fine motor skills, your technical skills. And so those two things are at the heart of what we do on the trail, and they are directly influenced by breathing. And so the better your breathing habits are, the better that you're going to do with those things. So training your breathing, what do we do with this? Okay, so not all breathing is created equal. You know, like I mentioned, there's a good book out there if you want more information called The Oxygen Advantage, and he does a good job of breaking down there's physiological differences in breathing through the nose and using diaphragmatic breathing and not doing that, like breathing only through the mouth and using the chest to drive the breathing. So your body physiologically changes in response to those two different types of breathing. Now, one, breathing through the nose, you get more nitrous oxide, NO2, which is a vasodilator. And so that means that it expands the blood vessels. It makes it easier for blood and things to get through the blood vessels. And so you breathing in through the nose is different than breathing in through the mouth. There's several differences there, but that's one of the main ones. And so knowing how to drive your breathing through your nose, either 100% or at least if you're breathing through the mouth, there's a difference between 100% mouth breathing, just and being able to breathe through the mouth, but also drive it through the nose where you're breathing in, but it's also like you're taking oxygen in through the nose as well. So knowing how to use your nose, again, it's just one of these things that people take for granted, but you'll be shocked at how hard it is to breathe through your nose when you start practicing it. And it's very hard to do on the bike. Like on the bike, especially when we get in these high tension situations, is again why you need to know how to drive even breathing through the mouth through your nose as well. Because you will get forced into situations where you go to mouth breathing, and if you don't have good habits there, then you're going to go from good nasal breathing to mouth breathing and chest breathing, and that's no good. The other aspect of it is besides which hole you're breathing through, is also where you're driving your breathing. Like, are you driving your breathing from your chest, like picking the chest up, like this high, like we call this panic breathing actually, or are you driving it low, like into the belly? And using the diaphragm to pull the diaphragm pulls down, and that opens up the lungs and pulls the oxygen in. And again, two different physiological responses to those types of breathing. Breathing through the diaphragm is going to fire the vagus nerve, which is again helps control your heart rate, helps control fires the parasympathetic nervous system, like keeps things from going too far into the fight or flight response. Panic breathing is associated with that sympathetic nervous system response, so even making the fight or flight response even more heightened. Okay, and so again, if you're on the trail and we're in a situation, technical situation, you don't need to be panic breathing. You don't want to be heightening this fight or flight response and also raising your heart rate and getting adrenaline going. All these things, these are not what you want to have happening. These are what will get you hurt. Especially in like a technical situation. So you need to make sure that you're using your breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing will help keep those things under control. So there's a physiological difference between diaphragmatic breathing and chest breathing. There's a physiological difference between only breathing in through the mouth and also breathing in through the nose. And so you can't say it's not all the same. It's not breathing is just breathing. And again, you will be surprised at how hard it is to breathe correctly once you start focusing on how to do it and what you actually want. So when it comes to training your breathing, there's three levels basically that I look at doing this. And again, this is building blocks. Like, what's the most basic to the most complex? And the most complex thing is riding your bike. Okay, you're not going to improve your breathing riding your bike. Absolutely, like, I don't guarantee it, right? Some people will be able to improve their breathing to some degree doing it, blah, 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 okay? But for the most part, you're not going to be able to improve your breathing to any appreciable degree by just riding your bike, okay? Riding your bike is where you apply what you already have, okay? Both from a strength and mobility standpoint, from a breathing mechanic standpoint, like that's where you apply that stuff. And so you're not going to train that effectively just by riding. And so you do need to do things off of the bike in order to help improve that. So what do you do, right? What's at the base of the pyramid? Well, the base of the pyramid is just like breath training, okay? Like meditation is a form of breath training. I'm going to show you a couple different, just kind of where you're not moving, right? There's no movement. The only thing that you have to focus on is your breathing. And so by taking away all movement and anything like that allows you to focus exclusively on your breathing. And that's what allows you to really start to take control of how you're breathing and where you're driving your breathing. And then the next step up is going to be your mobility, like basically how you can move while maintaining your breathing. And again, one of the things that you'll notice about mobility training is that when you get put into uncomfortable positions, either you're in a deep into an in range of motion, or you're in a position that you're not used to being in, and so it's very uncomfortable for you, that your breathing is something that starts to go, right? You start to panic breathe and breathe in the chest, and you shallow breathing. You're just trying to get through it until the timer's over and you can just get out of that stretch or that position. And that's horrible. That's a bad way to be working on your mobility, because you're just training your body to associate these positions with bad breathing habits. And so you have to focus on maintaining good breathing habits while you're just working on moving, just basic movement, okay? And whether it's mobility or whether it's some basic body weight stuff, that's kind of that next level. And then finally, you get into high tension situations, and your ability to maintain good breathing habits when you're under high tension. And so that's where things like strength training come in. That's where things like high tension cardio come in. And this is also where riding your bike comes in. So again, you do need to work on applying good breathing habits to the trail and being conscious of these things. And so again, if you're not going to just go out and train it there, but if you're doing some good breath training, you're doing your mobility and making sure that you're connecting your breathing to your mobility. You're doing some strength and good cardio training. And again, making sure that you're connecting your breathing to those things. Then when you get on the trail, you've got these building blocks. And so now you're not trying to learn how to breathe better on the trail. You're trying to apply your better breathing to the trail. And so now you can start to focus a little bit more on how you're driving your breathing and noticing when you're going into panic breathing and consciously shifting into a better breathing pattern. And so that's when you can start to do that. So that is, again, at that very tip of the pyramid that you want to, that we're looking at there. So those are the three things. I'm going to give you guys some ways that you can work on these things. The other thing, actually, got it down here. I'm going to show you guys my walking or marching breathing ladders. And so these are things that kind of bridge the gap between the breath training and some of the movement stuff, and just getting you to be able to connect your breathing to your walking or just marching in place. And so again, this is a great cardio training strategy. I've posted blog posts about it and talked about it many times before. I just think it's one of these things that people go, oh yeah, that's cool, and then they just kind of forget about it, and they either don't do it, or they maybe do it once or twice and they don't do it again. And so I always like to try to remind people of these breathing ladders and why they're such a good tool for you to be using. It's the best cardio training workout that the vast majority of mountain bikers have never done. And so this is the one thing that if they did would improve their cardio like almost instantly. So let's start out though with some of the things that we can do with our training, just kind of our breath training here. So let me check our stuff here, just making sure we're all still doing good on the technical side. Excellent. So what we're gonna do, breath training. The most basic form of it, something that I do on a pretty regular basis, is just like basic meditation. You can also do something called crocodile breathing, which is a good tool, and also just another one lying on your back. And so I'm going to show you the crocodile breathing first, because it's one of the more basic ones. It's one that I've talked about before. But you're going to do this by starting by laying on your stomach. Okay, so you're going to lay down like this, and hands on your head. We're going to lay in this position here. Now, what we're going to do, what the goal is we're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. We're going to avoid breathing through the mouth right now, okay? So in through the nose and out through the nose. And then what we're looking to do is breathe into the belly and into the sides. Like, one of the things that you want to focus on is breathing in 3 dimensions, right? It's not just, breathe like the belly expanding out. We also want to feel the sides expand out. We want to feel the breath going up into the lungs. So there's 3 dimensions to this. It's forward and back, side to side, and up. And so you want to be, again, when you're training your breathing, you want to be working on that as well. And so with the crocodile breathing, you're in that position, you're just laying there and you're breathing in through your nose and out through your nose, and you're trying to feel the pressure, like your belly pressing into the ground and not your chest. Okay, you shouldn't feel your chest raising up and down. So again, you're wanting it to look like this, where my head and chest are pretty still, rather than what you'll feel is if you're really chest breathing, your head will start to come off of your hands. You'll start to lose a little pressure on your hands. And so if your head's staying totally relaxed, pressure into your hands, and you're breathing into the belly, then that's what you're looking for. The other thing is trying to get the breathing going into the side. You can actually kind of work on this sitting on your knees as well. So breathing in and out. And you see, I'm trying to have my fingers, I'm poking in my sides just a little bit, and I want to feel like I use my breath to push my fingers out to the side. So again, just in through the nose, out through the nose. It's not a huge movement, but if you're doing it right, you'll definitely feel when you breathe out, your fingers will sink in. I'm not trying to poke in real hard, right? Because if I poke in hard, I'll get a reflexive tension in the muscles trying to protect itself. I'm just pushing in just enough so that I can feel, I get a little bit of feel kinesthetic feedback, right? Having that pressure of my fingers on the side makes it easier for me to send my breath to that place. So, it's sitting out and pushing the fingers out and the fingers come in. So again, you can practice that from that crocodile breathing. You can practice that from even just sitting here. So again, breathing in, feeling the belly expand and the lower back. And you want to feel like the hands expanding like this, right? And then also coming and checking in on here, so you're getting kind of those first 3 dimensions. Like that's loosening up this area and driving the breathing with the diaphragm is one of the most important things you can do. Now, a lot of people are going to be predominantly chest breathers. Okay, so I got some people joining right on. Some people from South Africa and Rome. Welcome, guys. So like I said, one of the reasons I like to focus on that first, because I did mention, like, you do want to use your chest to breathe, right? I don't want to not use my chest. I want my breath to come up, and to do that, I have to use my chest. But so many people are predominant chest breathers that getting them to focus on that lower aspect, breathing into the diaphragm, where they're feeling the belly expand and they're feeling what's the side muscles there? The obliques. That's right, the obliques. The obliques, right? Like feeling the obliques expanding out, the lower back and the belly expanding out. Like getting people to drive their breath down into the diaphragm and kind of getting this to loosen up and breathe is the first thing that will help them do that. And so, once you've got that, like going into some just like basic meditation, like call it what you want. You can use meditation for a lot of different things. But at its most basic level, it's breath training, all right? So focusing on your breathing with nothing else going on, okay? And so you can do whatever you want, but I like to just sit and go cross-legged. If I'm feeling mobile, I'll throw a little like half lotus in there. So just sit there and get the hands in position, wherever you feel comfortable, whatever is good for you is fine. But the basic idea is that I'm driving my breathing, I'm focusing on my breathing. A couple different things, right? Like you can feel your breath. Like one of the most basic things is pay attention to your breathing, just going in through your nose, right? Feel your breath go in and out through your nose. Try and do 10 breaths where your entire focus is simply on feeling the breath going in and out through the nose. And you will be shocked at how difficult that is. One, just how easy it is for the brain to wander, but it's hard to focus on your breathing because it's not something that we usually think about. So a good breath, you're going to feel go in through the nose. It's going to hit the back of the sinuses. It's going to travel down into the belly. And so you can focus on each one of those aspects. You can try and focus on the whole thing. Does it on reverse out. You come from the belly, up through the throat, back of the sinuses, out through the nose. And so just understanding like what a good breath, where, how it should travel, what it should feel like. You can, focus on that. You can also focus on the diaphragmatic breathing aspect, right? Like breathing into the belly, but again, then finishing, right? Like I'm not just breathing into the belly and finishing there. I'm breathing into the belly and I'm finishing high, right? Like my breath goes from low and it keeps coming in low, but then it comes high. And so there's an aspect of my breath naturally pulling my shoulders down and back, expanding my chest. So that's one of the things, like good breathing reinforces good posture, and good posture reinforces good breathing. Like if I have this posture, I can't use this, right? So bad posture literally cuts off part of the lungs that I have access to. So bad posture prevents good breathing. Bad breathing makes it really hard to stay in good posture. So, and good posture is your basis for movement, efficient movement. And so the more efficient your breathing is, and the more you're using it to help reinforce good posture, you're using good posture to reinforce good breathing, the better you're going to perform. So again, just spending like 10 minutes just sitting here, eyes closed, just breathing in, breathing out. Again, just if your mind wanders, come back to your breathing. But again, it is a focused breathing practice that you need. And so again, starting out from just kind of doing those kneeling or lying on your stomach and focusing on getting the belly and the low back and the obliques, getting the whole, expanding the first two dimensions going, and then starting working, getting that third dimension where you're breathing high and finishing high up into the chest. That's the ultimate goal. And then again, you can use meditation to help, seated breathing practice, whatever you want to call it, to help reinforce that. But it's super important. It's one of those things like, you can change your cardiovascular performance by changing your breathing habits. So if you're getting ready to do a cardio workout and you spend a minute or two working on your breathing, and this is something, again, like with the workout programs that I created, you'll notice we have crocodile breathing at the beginning of the warm-ups. And that's why, right? We're working on improving our breathing patterns, because if I can improve my breathing pattern, I'm going to improve my posture. I'm going to improve my power output. I'm going to improve my cardio output. I'm going to improve all of these things by simply taking a minute or two at the beginning of the workout and making sure that I've just reinforced good breathing habits. And so, just an important thing to focus on that a lot of people don't necessarily do. So the next step from that is getting into the breathing ladders. And this is where we're going to start incorporating some movement into it. Now, the other thing that the breathing ladders does that I really like is it teaches us to use both ends of the breathing spectrum. So most people kind of get stuck in a narrow range. And so you want to be able to use long, deep breathing, and you also want to be able to use short burst breathing. Like that's the other aspect. Like there is a time and a place where you're like it's not something you want to be relying on and doing a lot, but there are times when you're going to be pushed into situations, high tension situations, that's requiring a shorter burst type breathing as opposed to a longer, more sustained inhale and exhale type breathing. And so again, but people get stuck in this narrow range where they can't really access the burst breathing when things get really tough. They can't really access the long, relaxing breathing when things are easy, either off their bike or on their bike. Because again, remember, your ability to use your breathing to recover from hard efforts, right? Like mountain biking is hard effort recovery, hard effort recovery, hard effort recovery. It's super hard to create a sustained effort level, right? Like again, one of the big differences with road riding and mountain biking is road riding, it's a lot easier to create a more sustained effort level compared to mountain biking, where you are forced into these high tension situations by the trail. And so your ability to recover. So if you're on a climb that's got, a hard section and a little, recovery, like kind of flat, and you got another climb after that, if you can use your breathing to recover your heart rate and lower your heart rate faster than the guy that you're riding with during that recovery section, so you go into that next hard effort with your heart rate just a little bit lower, and you're able to repeat that over the course of a ride, that adds up, man. That is a huge difference in your endurance. So your ability to recover, to use your breathing to relax and lower your heart rate and recover your heart rate and get back to a more aerobic based, metabolic demands, that's super important. It's not just your ability to work hard. Okay, people like to focus on this working hard part. That's great. But if you can't recover super efficiently, then you're not going to perform well either, right? So you need both of these things. And that's where the long recovery breathing comes in, but you also need the short burst breathing. So we're going to take a look at what these breathing ladders look like. So you can do this walking. This is one of the things that I'll do, like secretly, if I'm walking around, I don't know, whatever, just, you're walking around somewhere and you're not, whatever, it's not a lot to pay attention to, you're kind of bored. So you start doing these breathing ladders while you're walking, and it helps train your breathing, give you something to keep your mind off of in case you're like wandering around, not wanting to be there, whatever the case may be. But, so we can do these walking, but obviously, walking, I'm going to walk off the camera here pretty quick. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at these as marching. And so if you don't have space, then you can do these marching as well. And if we're doing the marching, then we're getting this contralateral movement going. So, one foot, one knee's coming up, and that opposite hand's coming up, or arm's coming up. So you want to get a good march like this. The knees are coming up, the hands are swinging back, or the elbows are swinging. And so this is a good march, like something that, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a good rhythm. You're not going really fast, but you're not going super slow either, right? Like just a casual pace. Like if you were walking, it would be something just kind of like a nice, easy pace, like this. And again, you can do the marching while you're doing that as well, or like I said, if you're doing it secretly, you can just walk. But again, if we're doing these as part of the workout, I would have you march, but you would actually be moving, right? So you can also do this standing in place. Marching is just a good warm-up drill anyways, right? So it's good stuff to put in the beginning of your workouts. But you can add in this breathing drill. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with breathing in and out through the nose. We're going to breathe in on one step and out on one step. We're going to start with one, okay? So it's going to look like this. One in, one out. Okay, so I'm trying to exaggerate my breathing so you guys can hear it. And so, but the point is that I breathe in on one and I breathe out on the other. So I'm getting it's 1 and 1, and then after I've done that, I work up to 2 and 2, right? So I start out with 1 and 1. Then we go to 2. Out, out, in, out, out, in, out, right? And then we would go to 3. So it'd be like in, out, out, in, out. So you're going to work up from 1. The goal is to work up to 10. Okay, so you go from the 1 and 1, which again, for some people, you're going to find, holy crap, like if you try to do the 1 and 1 for like 30 seconds or so, you're going to find out real quickly, like, holy crap, I may not be taking in and letting out enough oxygen. It's easy to do for like 5 seconds, right? But if you try to maintain that 1 and 1, and you try to maintain that for any length of time, you'll find out real quickly, like, are you breathing in and out enough, or do you kind of are not able to access that shorter burst breathing where you're not able to, right? And so some people find that difficult, and then almost everyone finds the longer breathing difficult. Somewhere around, for most people, 6 to 8 steps per breath is where they start to max out. And so getting into 9 and 10 and even more, they literally can't do it. They can't control their breathing. They can't access enough lung space to do it. So again, to get a 10, you're going for 10, where 10 steps in and 10 steps out. Okay, it's not as easy as it sounds. Again, especially if you maintain good relaxed breathing habits. It's one thing if you're just like you're starting, shoulders start hunching and whatever. But if you maintain a relaxed face, relaxed, breathing mechanics and trying to get to that 10, it's difficult. So again, you're gonna start out with 1 and 1, and then 2 and 2, and then you get to 3 and 3, and eventually you get to where you're doing the 10, right? So that's where also making sure that you don't start going faster, because some people will start doing their steps like this, and that'll help you get your 10 in as well. But again, it looks simple. It looks super simple, almost too simple, excuse me, to have any, good, to have a whole lot of value, right? Compared to like a more complex, harder core looking workout. But I guarantee you that if you've never done that before, that workout, right? Like you start just doing your marches and you start trying to, 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out, do that for, 10, 15 reps, and then go to the 2 in, 2 out, and 3 in, 3 out, and keep building up. You're gonna find where your limits are, right? You'll find where your range is. You'll find that, probably between, 3 to 6 or 7 is where you're comfortable with. That the burst breathing on this extreme and the deep breathing on the other extreme is hard. It's not comfortable for you to do. And so, that's something that it's a weakness with your breathing mechanics that can be fixed through some simple training like that. So again, starting with the breath training and then incorporating the breathing ladders there. And so, I mean, a good way to do this would be to do just that, like spend a minute or two on your breath training and then run through the breathing ladders. And then, if you did that before you did your cardio workout, you would have a much more efficient, much more productive cardio workout than just jumping into your cardio workout and using the same old crappy breathing patterns that you're not even aware that you have, right? So make sure you're focusing on that. So all right, so the last thing is going to be movement-based stuff. And so, we've worked on the breathing. We've started to incorporate the breathing with the most basic of movements, which is marching or walking. And then now we're going to start getting into some more complex movements. Now, I don't really have, again, like, there's not like a specific, this exercise is going to improve your breathing. Really what this starts to get into, I'm going to show you guys some examples. But what this starts to get into is you guys starting to tie in your breathing to what you're doing with your strength and mobility training. And so you need to be doing the strength and mobility training, but good strength and mobility training is also good breath training, because you should be driving these things with your breathing. And so you connecting the lessons that you're learning and the tools that you're building from just your breath training and then the breathing ladders that to your other stuff is really where the magic starts to happen, okay? So you connecting these higher level movements, these higher tension movements and things that you're doing to your breathing and driving them with that is super important. So let me show you a couple examples, right? So one, like mobility is a good example. So either when you get into an extreme range of motion that you're not comfortable with. So I'll show you a good example with this. I'm gonna point the camera down a little bit here. So this is a mobility position that I'll get people into, right? This is a lizard pose. Okay, and so this position here, I'm framing my foot, the outside of my hand with my foot. Nothing special here, but I like to do something called up downs here. So what we'll do is we'll come down to the outside elbow, and then we'll come down to the inside elbow. And to finish out, we would come up and lead with the elbow and open up, right? I love this move, really good for the hips, the upper back, the chest, all that stuff. But I'll also have people just come out and hang out, and they'll just come down here. And this is a very uncomfortable position for most people. Things are tight. They don't feel comfortable there, and so the breathing will go shallow, right? They'll come down here, and all of a sudden they're just like, they're like this shallow chest breathing, they're breathing through their mouth. They're just trying to survive this position until they can get out of it. And that's the worst thing you can do. Okay, what you need to be doing is when you go down into these extreme positions, you need to maintain. This is where you really need to focus on maintaining good breathing, keeping your face relaxed, breathing in through deep in through your nose, and out. Right? I don't care if you breathe out through your mouth. Like when you need to let the air out, that's fine. Breathing in through the nose though, and out. And so this is what like the yoga people talk about, like when they're saying like use your breathing to focus on your tight areas. What they're basically saying is like use like breathing in, maintaining good deep diaphragmatic breathing triggers, it keeps the body from going into the fight or flight response, right? If it goes into fight or flight, it's going to get tight and things are going to get tighter. And how are you going to gain mobility if your response to this position is right? You're not. So what you need to do is you need to use your breathing to keep that parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus nerve there, firing and doing its thing to keep that fight or flight response from taking over. And so even if you don't gain any more mobility, if you just relax, okay, you may look the exact same as far as like, you didn't come down any deeper or anything like that, but you were able to relax a little bit in that position. That's that first building block to better mobility. So make sure when you're getting into these extreme ranges of motion, or you get into a position like some sort of movement or something that you're not used to doing, then you're making sure that you're keeping your breathing under control, because it's super easy to just let the breathing go. When the body's in an uncomfortable position, it starts to trigger that fight or flight response, and your breathing starts to reflect that. And if you don't consciously take control of that and start to put it back on the track of like, hey man, this is not a threat, I don't need to be responding like this, then you're not gonna get the mobility that you want. And plus, remember, you're training your brain, right? Ultimately, everything's training the brain. What does the brain see? Like, it doesn't matter what you think you're doing. It only matters what the brain actually sees and is training for the future based on. Okay, and so if you get into these extreme ranges of motion, or you get into an uncomfortable position when you're doing your mobility, and you trigger the fight or flight response, and you're just like, trying to get through it, what are you really training the brain to do? Okay, when it gets into these uncomfortable positions, what is it going to do? It's going to automatically go into these responses that you've allowed it to learn. And so these are inefficient, both from your ability to use your cardiovascular system well, and also from your ability to move well. Okay, so we don't want that happening in our body being trained when we get into these extreme positions to start panicking and going into panic breathing. So make sure you're using your breathing to help you relax, especially as you get into extreme ranges of motions or uncomfortable positions or things like that. Okay, just be aware that chest breathing is starting to take over, and put it back. The next thing is going to be your strength training. And so again, it doesn't need to be overly complicated. I'll grab a kettlebell here. Boom. So just something simple like a goblet squat, right? So I get set up in a goblet squat, and instead of just doing my reps, just completely unaware of how I'm breathing, I make sure I connect my breathing, right? Either I'm breathing in on the way down and out on the way up, or maybe I'm cycling a breath at the bottom, right? I come down. You can reverse this, right? Like, don't believe anyone who tells you there's only one way to breathe, right? Like, when you're on the trail, you don't always get to breathe in on the way down and out on the way up, okay? Sometimes those things get reversed, and so reversing your breathing is a good thing to do. So you breathe out on the way down, and in on the way up, and out, and in. Okay, so yeah, is there an optimal way to breathe there? Like if I'm talking about, am I going to try a max squat reversing my breathing like that? No. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that you need to connect your breathing to your movement. Again, this isn't complicated, right? It doesn't have to be overly complicated. But just if you look at most people, when they're in the gym training, when they're doing their workouts, they are not thinking about their breathing. You can just tell. They're thinking about the movement. They're trying to move without focusing on the process, which your breathing drives that process. And so just attaching your breathing to your movement it's pretty simple, but it takes discipline, right? It's easy to get in the gym, pop in your headphones, you listen to your music, get your workout on. I got out of there, I'm all sweaty, I was breathing hard, that was a great workout. Really, was it? Like, what did you really train? Your crappy breathing habits? Like, that's not good. That's not what we want. So, again, same thing when you're doing your cardio. Okay, like one of the things, again, like I always have with the cardio workouts that I have for my clients, again, the Ultimate MTB Workout Program. You'll see this with the workouts where I give you a goal, right? I want you to do X number of sprints and X number of intensity, recovery heart rate to this, blah, blah, blah. But it always says, like, breathing and posture are most important. Okay, you cannot compromise breathing and posture to try to get a few more watts on the power meter or, gut out that last interval. Like, man, if I told you that you needed to do 8 intervals and you got to 7 and you're just done, man, you're just like, your power, like you cannot maintain good breathing habits without seeing your performance drop off significantly, right? Like the only way that you can maintain your performance for that next interval is to let your breathing and posture go to shit and just do whatever the hell you need to get through it. Don't do that interval. Don't do that. That's not good, right? Like, what are you training the brain to do? You're training the brain that when it gets fatigued to go to bad movement habits. And so you want to make sure that you're driving your cardio not by these external numbers, right? Like I talked about this before. Being focused on the outcome and not the process is the wrong way to do it. And this is a perfect example of if you've got a training program where you're focusing on, a certain number of watts or, even a heart rate, right? Like you can achieve a heart rate, but how are you, like what kind of breathing pattern are you using while you are at that heart rate? So making sure that you're focusing on the process and then not compromising the process for these numbers. Okay, like just because you had, like I said, like if I told you to do 8 and you were going to compromise the hell out of your posture and breathing to get to 8, well then don't do that 8th one, right? Like if you are supposed to do this many intervals at this many watts or whatever, and again, like no baby kittens are going to die just because you didn't follow that specific workout to the T. And this whole idea of like, this needs a specific formula, and if I don't hit this certain number of watts and blah, 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 it's bullshit. It doesn't work that way, right? Like this is nonsense from, periodization from sports like Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting and things that have very few variables and things like that go into into your performance. And so getting caught up in this thing, like, man, I have to follow this workout to the letter. If I don't achieve these numbers, I can compromise my movement, I can compromise my breathing, I can compromise my posture. All these things I'm going to compromise because I got to hit these numbers. Because if I hit these numbers, I believe that's going to mean that I'm going to perform well for whatever, right? At this race, during the season, whatever it is. And man, it's not how it works, right? Like I've been doing this for a long time. I work with thousands of riders. I'm just telling you that that's not how it works, that you focusing on the process instead of the outcome, whether you're in the gym, right? If you're supposed to lift X amount of weight, and you got to compromise your form to do it, you don't do it, right? That's one of the things I've been preaching for forever. And this is basically the same thing, right? Like if you walked in the gym and I told you, hey, on your workout, you need to do, this amount of weight for this amount of reps, sets and reps. Okay. And you came back to me and said, man, I hurt my form was going to crap, but I had to get that last rep because you wrote it down. And so I hurt my back doing it, right? Like no, that's not good. That's why I constantly preach to people, like, it's not okay to get hurt. You got to make sure that you're not doing that stuff. But, and we all kind of know this, right, on some level that, yeah, I wouldn't compromise how I move to, try and move more weight, or at least I shouldn't, right? Because that can get me hurt. It's not leading to good movement habits, but breathing is basically that equivalent for your cardio training, okay? Like you going in and doing a cardio workout without, and compromising your breathing and your posture while you're doing it is the same thing as going in and doing a deadlift workout and compromising your posture and your lower back and all that stuff while you're doing that. Like it's not what you want, okay? Like we're mountain bikers. We don't get paid based on how we perform in the gym. Most of us don't get paid anyways, right? We just love to do this. And so the main thing that matters is how are you performing on the trail, not in the gym. And so how you perform on the trail is going to come down to things like movement efficiency, breathing efficiency. And so those are the things that you got to make sure that you're training and not just focusing on the numbers. Like hitting a certain number on your deadlift is great, but man, if you move like crap to get there, that's not going to help you on your bike as much as someone who lifted less weight but maintained higher movement quality, maintain good breathing and posture with that. So like that's really what we're looking for. And again, if you have those things, then your deadlift numbers should reflect that, right? Like that's that thing. If you have good movement, you have good breathing habits, you're going to have a strong deadlift. You're going to have a strong, whatever exercise you're worried about. But if you're focused on having a strong deadlift and not the process for getting there, again, we compromise things, okay? So if you're focused on having a certain, functional power threshold or whatever that is, without focusing on the process, how are we getting there? Then you may not actually get what you want at the end of the day when you achieve it. So, anyways, all right. I think that's about it. I mean, the main thing to keep in mind is that cardio is very tension specific. Okay, so when you're doing your movement-based training, and that's the high tension cardio is one of those things. I've mentioned it several times, but the big mistake that I see riders make is they either have no high tension, good quality high tension cardio work in their program, or when they're doing it, they don't focus on their breathing. And so, because the high tension stuff, right? Like you're doing a 10 seconds all out and repeating that, right? Like that's a super high tension effort. You can't maintain that effort for very long because of the amount of tension that your body's having to create in order to fuel that. And so, but those high tension efforts are the ones that we're most likely to compromise our breathing and posture. Those are the ones where you're most likely to see someone just either hold their breath, because you can hold your breath for 10 seconds, right? Or they just like, they got bad because they're just surviving the 10 seconds. All right. And so that is not good, right? Make sure that when you're doing that high tension stuff, especially as a mountain biker, that you are focusing on your breathing and your posture, because when you get on the trail, that's all you want your body to know. So that when you start getting on that tough technical climb, your body, all it knows is like good breathing and good posture. And so that's just what it reverts to. That's its habit. That's what you want to have it be, a good breathing habit. So that's basically it, man. I appreciate you guys joining me. Hopefully you guys got some good info from this. And so we had a couple people join us for the live stream. I'll be posting this as well. And you guys got any questions on this? Feel free to email me, james@bikejames.com. I'll be doing some more webinars, do another one next week and kind of see how things are looking moving forward. I definitely want to keep doing these things on a regular basis. I like sharing this random information with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. But that's it. So I'm going to move on. I'll let you guys get back to the rest of your day. And remember, focus on your breathing, guys. Don't be, don't be like most people and not be conscious of that, because it's just such a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, energy, and effort to improve it, and it'll make a huge difference in so many different aspects of your training and riding and stuff. So hopefully you guys get some stuff from this that will help you do that. So I will talk to everybody next time.